That sounded just like our ears.
I swear something just now touched the back of my leg. It felt like something just touched the back of my leg. Have you ever been touched in here?
What was that? Did you hear that?
I heard something.
I don't know. For some reason, I'm like on edge.
I don't have an explanation for how that could be possible.
That is probably one of the craziest things we've had happen. Last week, we uploaded the episode from our investigation of the farm that inspired The Conjuring. Investigating this infamous house was one of the most exciting moments of our paranormal quest so far. If you haven't seen the full episode yet, the link is in the description. And while you're over there, be sure to like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. On our phone call with Andrea Perron during the investigation, she made it very clear that she wanted to react to our evidence once we finished the review.
Because what they will do is later, after we have this time together tonight, they will continue to talk with me about their experiences, and we will share some more of what we experienced when we lived there, when the Perrin family lived with you.
So now, Jason will present our favorite pieces of evidence to Andrea Perron, a woman who experienced the paranormal activity of the Harrisville farmhouse when it was at its most powerful.
So right now, I am about to speak to Andrea Perron once again to let her know about all the things that we had happen inside this Harrisville farm, all of our experiences, and really get her opinion on exactly what it was that we were communicating with, who it was we were talking to, and exactly if it had correlated with her and her family's experiences. All right, well, we'll just delve straight into it here. But you remember at one point during the night, you had texted me and you had said that they knew we were there, they knew who we were, and that the house was activated. You had felt it, they had spoke to you. And I wanted to show you here, I'm going to play a clip of actually what was going on in the house while we were gone when you would have been picking up on these feelings. So I'm going to show you what was going on when no one was in the house.
Okay.
For this abandonment session, we'll be using the repurposed REM pod that Dave and I made after the antenna broke off. We connected copper wire to the antenna cable inside the device, and with an alligator clamp, we can turn any metal object into the antenna of this REM pod. Last investigation at the West Virginia Penitentiary, we used it on the execution cap to the electric chair.
Awesome.
Cool.
There we go.
On this investigation, Steve had the idea to connect it to the metal door handle on the door that leads to the basement. So now, we're using a piece of this famously haunted house as the antenna to our REM pod. Just 30 seconds after we walk out the door to leave this house empty, the REM pod indicates that something is touching the door handle. 30 seconds later, it does it again. And then, 3 seconds after that, for almost 8 minutes straight, the REM pod indicates an energy is coming into contact with the door handle, fading out, and then making contact again. After 8 minutes, the REM pod falls silent. For now.
So you can see the house was a little bit noisy.
Yeah.
They were moving around some.
I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but that was nothing compared to how it was when my family lived there. I mean, that was just average, ordinary day, night, strange noises, unexplained, light fixtures going on and off, incredible drops in temperature. Steam starts coming out of our mouths because the temperature around us dropped 50 degrees just like that, just instantaneously. And we didn't have all those gadgets and gizmos and things to measure anything. It was just like, oh my God, the temperature just plummeted, or oh my God, what's going on with the latch on that door, or oh, here we go again. It was that kind of activity was just absolutely incessant. It never ever stopped. And I mean, to the point where we just went on about our lives and didn't really even notice. It had to be something pretty substantial, something that really got our attention. Bottles flying across the room, or chairs being flipped over, or the rocking chair going back and forth all by itself, or the stereo just, turning on and going all the way up in volume till you would be absolutely certain that the speakers had been blown, things like that. And yet they weren't. They would sometimes just do some pretty over-the-top, extraordinary things to get our attention. But, I knew that I was going to be talking with you and your team that night. And so just prior to, and it was late, it was quite late actually, when we finally did get to speak, and it had been a long day for me. So I was just laying in my bed and had my phone charged up, and was just, catching up on some news, and I turned the volume down and just closed my eyes for a minute and communicated with the spirits at the farmhouse. And I told them who was coming, and that I knew you, that I had spent time with you talking about the incidents that occurred when we lived there, and that I wanted them to be polite because you would be polite, that you were not going to provoke them in any way, that you would be respectful, and that I would hope that they would be respectful, but that they would have company that night, and that I hoped that they would take that opportunity to communicate with you. And it seems to me that so far from what I've seen, that they did so in a very respectful way.
Yes, absolutely they did. Absolutely. And it's interesting because the things that they had told you and that you shared with us, really, it speaks louder as time goes on here throughout the night. That was, that was kind of the appetizer here. It gets much better. So basically, let me see here. Once we get back from our abandonment, as we call it, and we kind of are collecting our equipment, at one point, the REM pod that is connected to the basement door in the parlor, it begins to go off, and which seemed a little out of place at the time because it had been totally quiet since we had been back. And shortly after it started triggering, we captured something peculiar on audio.
Okay.
And I'll play you this.
Whoa! There's things going off on the door handle.
The cat ball just went off up here.
You turn the camera off?
This one is running.
It's going off again.
The cat ball's going off up here too.
Same time. Cat ball upstairs and this one off at the same time, 2 times each.
EDI just went off too.
Oh, wow.
EDI just went off.
Oh shit.
Dude, what if Ryan walked up there and scared it down the steps?
We just got back from abandonment and literally we walked through the door and stuff started going wild.
That's a good possibility.
Hard to say.
Hello? In the audio. Hello?
Wow.
Audio.
Can you light up something else again? Can you touch that one on the bed in there?
Are you trying to move the door?
You can put your hand all the way down on that. Can you slide it across the floor? Try and give it a good push. It won't hurt it. It won't hurt you either.
We didn't mean to startle you. We have permission to be here by the new property owners. My name's Steve. So my good friends Jason, Dave, and Ryan's upstairs. That was quiet as can be when we came in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the last one in.
Can you push the door open?
That was quiet as can be when we came in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the last one in.
Can you push the door open?
And I was the last one in.
Can you push the door open?
And I was the last one in.
Can you push the door open?
Whoa.
Oh,
Something just touched the back of my waist.
are you serious?
Yeah. I just got touched.
Are you here with us?
Like I told you, you're not alone in that house. You're never, ever, ever alone in that house.
It sounded almost just like a female or a young child is nearby speaking.
Yeah.
Right then, and then when the REM pod's going off, Steve gets touched. And that was one of our first impressions, one of the first major experiences we had in the house together. And we're like, okay, here we go. Shortly thereafter, when you had called me or vice versa, either way, we were on the phone together talking. And at one point, though, you told me, you said, if you would like to feel a presence next to you, go stand on the hearthstone.
And if you want to have some communication and you want to feel a presence beside you, go stand on the hearthstone in front of the fireplace.
Right.
And I went over to the hearthstone and I stood there. And as soon as you said, tell me which side feels like it's cold. And when I turned around, it was my left side.
And then tell me which side of your body feels cold.
My left side.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, my left side. Yeah, I can feel it, Andrea. I can feel it. It's getting cold on my left hand.
Which was so crazy that, you know, you had said that. It literally gave me chills that you told me to stand there, and then I feel that. It was just vindication, but it was so awesome. And shortly thereafter, we began to hear noises coming from upstairs.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
The noises that are coming from upstairs are coming from the boarding room, which is that long, dark room that has the oddly shaped door right off of my old bedroom.
That you had picked up on. And we, of course, hadn't mentioned anything to you about it on the phone yet, but you picked up on it first. And then a little bit later, the noises, we continue hearing them, and they got a little bit louder.
Because what they will do is later, after we have this time together tonight, they will continue to talk with me about their experiences, and we will share some more of what we experienced when we lived there, when the Perrin family lived with you. Continue to talk with me about their experiences. Continue to talk with me about their experiences. And so what I want you to do tonight, and they will share their energy with you. These are young, strong men. You know, they bring with them knowledge and understanding and a desire to know you. And they will share their energy with you. These are young, strong men. You know, they bring with them. And they will share their energy so that you may draw upon that to manifest in whatever form you are able.
And they sounded just like they were coming from where you said, from upstairs in the boarding room.
Mm-hmm. Over the last year and a half or so that this has been going on, is that every single group without fail tells me that when they put the phone on speaker and my voice is booming through that house, the house becomes suddenly very active. And so I used my time with you that night almost to do my own kind of experimentation with this, because it's already been made clear to me that my voice activates the house. So with you guys, I thought what I would do is, you know, do a little bit of meditation and try to connect with them prior to your arrival. And then speak with you on the phone and see if there would be any change in terms of the amount of evidence, the frequency, if there was any reaction to my voice because I had called to them prior to you entering the house. And I think that it's pretty clear that while I was on the phone, even though what I'm seeing on film, are little snippets and a truncated version of your investigation, there's just no question in my mind. I don't think that it was your energy that was setting off the machines. I don't think that the gadgets were responding to a change in the temperature in the house or anything that you brought with you. It was more them feeling safe to be around you. So what I thought that I would do that night was just kind of take a stab in the dark and see if just by speaking with them from 1,200 miles away, if they would respond to you in a very open and cooperative way. And it seems that they have.
And honestly, the intelligence only continued, because shortly thereafter, you had mentioned to us about heading upstairs to your bedroom area, but to go into the boarding room.
Yeah.
And as soon as we did, it was very strange, because Ryan tried to open the door to the boarding room. He said it felt as if someone was inside, like holding on to the handle. Yeah, and like keeping him from entering.
Temperature change. That's where they hide when they're reticent about who's in the house. So if you open that door, I'll speak with them and let them know.
And then once we finally was able to enter the boarding room, we believed that we came into contact with possibly a female.
There's an outside window between the two bedrooms. There's an outside window between the two bedrooms.
Unless I were actually there with you, and picking that up, and you can send me that EVP separately, where I can really listen to it. But remember what I said about that room. There was a lot of pain that happened in that room. And, hundreds of years before women had any other option than natural childbirth. So for there to be a woman moaning in that room does not surprise me at all. And it's I would say predominantly female energy in that room.
There's an outside window between the two bedrooms.
So we move on to Cynthia's room. And as we moved into Cynthia's room, we began a spirit box session, what we call an SD session. We were asking questions. We were standing in your room. He was in your room, and he was in Cynthia's room with the spirit box. And we're asking questions, and any responses he would hear, he would just say out loud. And that way it's kind of, he didn't have any influence on what we were asking.
Right.
Now, what is interesting about this particular session is there were virtually no voices that really came through the spirit box to Ryan and spoke to him directly, but there was one, and it was at the beginning of the session itself. And we felt that it was this one voice, this one person that came through, and their message really was the answer as to why we didn't receive any more voices on the spirit box.
I wasn't hearing anything, nothing.
I'm really frustrated because after Andrea talked to the spirits through the phone, I had high hopes for this Estes Method spirit box session. None of us had any idea that we captured the explanation as soon as we started the session. Hearing this disembodied voice explains to us why nothing was talking through the S-box. They simply didn't like this piece of equipment.
I think they're not all that impressed with all the gadgetry. None of this stuff existed when we lived there. We had to rely, as I said, on our own sensory perceptions. And I really think that that's the way that they prefer to communicate. They're in a different realm. And it, I'm sure, is disconcerting to them to hear, things like the Echo Box or Spirit Box or, different technology that we've developed to contact them when they would prefer just to contact us in a more personal way.
Right. Something they're familiar with. Like you said, just the sound of the spirit box going off can be kind of an unpleasant sound, and certainly considering perhaps what time frame or time period they lived in, they never seen such a thing, much less even a radio.
Right. It just seems bizarre to them. I think that they find it, I'm trying to think of the right word, aggravating.
Right. A little bit later on in the night, and these last couple clips are rather short, but again, very intelligent. But a little bit later on in the night, Ryan and Steve actually went down to the basement area, and they were, again, running the spirit box, but they were actually running the spirit box through a device that they call the pedal box. And basically, it's an amplifier, and it has guitar pedals on it, and it helps to filter out the white noise and the radio interference and things like that. I guess the idea is to make it a little bit clearer and more easy to hear. At one point, as Steve and Ryan are downstairs in the basement, Steve actually asked if the spirits remembered you. He had asked if the spirits, do you remember Andrea? And I want to play you a clip of what we believe to be a couple responses.
Okay.
Do you remember Andrea Perron? Said yes. If you remember Andrea Perron, can you just say Andrea? Can you say her name? Can you say her name?
We really felt that was some of the more intelligent responses we had got all night. I know Ryan had told me when he had first heard your name, it sounds like your name coming through twice on the spirit box. When he listened to that on review, it was so crazy. I mean, it's awesome because, that's just perfect timing.
Yeah. I'm surprised they asked how I am because they know how I am. So, why ask that? But, I see them frequently enough and can communicate with them at will. So, but that was nice. That was very polite. Remember what I asked them? I said, to be polite. Well, they were being polite. That was a male voice. At least that was my sense of it. And I don't know who that would be because most of the interaction that I had in the house was with female entities, but there were a couple of male spirits that were always very pleasant and around a lot that were not problematic at all, not at all. And in fact, I don't know. I can't really explain it. There was one that just seemed to watch over us. I had a relationship with the spirits in the house that was predominantly peaceful. The only time that I was ever frightened in that house is if something was happening that was frightening somebody else. That shook me to the core. When I saw my mother being abused, shook me to the core when my sisters were crying. When things would happen that were hazardous to their health, that absolutely terrified me. But I didn't feel ever personally threatened in the house. I never did. And I look back on it all these decades later, and I have to think. I mean, it's been 50 years. It was on January 11th of 2021 was 50 years to the day that we moved into that farmhouse. And I still remember it as though it was yesterday. There were so many things that happened that I remember as though it just happened, because these events, when they occur, are just, burned into your memory bank, just seared into your brain.
Well, and it's so interesting because whoever was there speaking to us in the basement, speaking to Steve and Ryan, stayed right with them, because shortly thereafter, Ryan actually asked if they remembered your father. He asked if they remembered Roger.
What about her father? Do you remember her father's name? Yes. Did you hear that?
I heard that.
Just like a yes. Sounded, again, very male, almost like the voice that said, "Hey, Andrea," but sounded male again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very, very interesting, because really, I guess, to top it off, we'll say, is the voice that they captured almost right after this. Ryan began to say, when the Perrins lived here, and mid-sentence, right after he said the Perrins lived here, there was a voice, an interaction that came through the box one more time.
When the Perrin family lived here, one of the daughters, Cindy,
and they sounded as if they had acknowledged the Perrins. They obviously, as you said, of course, remember you. Not that you need any vindication, but they were saying it right there. It sounded like a male said, "My family."
We traced back on both sides of my family. There is no connection between the families that lived in that house for hundreds of years and our own. We were the first outsiders. And yet I always had the most profound sense of living with, for lack of a better word, my extended family, my cosmic family. And it was strange too, because I talked about my mother. I talked about this with my mother the day that we were moving out of the farm. And I told my mother about something that happened where I saw myself standing on the hearthstone as a much older woman. Now I was 21 years old, and I saw myself looking very much like I do now. And I told my mother that I had seen that, seen her, and that she smiled at me. And everybody in my family saw her, but nobody saw her face, because she was turned sideways on the hearthstone, staring directly at me. And it was like looking at a mirror image reflection of myself as an old woman. My mother got choked up, and she said, "Oh, honey, I always knew that we bought this house for you."
As I told you many times already, we can't thank you enough for everything you've done to help us with this, and you speaking with the spirits of the farm and communicating with them before, during, and after. We really do appreciate it, because it would not have been the same without you. And, just goes to show, like, what we had watched there with, during the time that you and I were on the phone and all this intelligence going on and the responses.
Yeah.
It would have not been the same had we not been able to have your help with this.
Oh, that was my pleasure. And, it was interesting for me as well, because I tried something new that I haven't done before. And again, I will reiterate, we know nothing compared with what there is to know. I mean, we're like little kids wandering around in the dark, trying to find our way home, trying to figure out what, the oddities and the mysteries of this life and the afterlife are like, what it is. And as I've said many times, the universe keeps its secrets, but reveals its wisdom. We need only listen.
That is great advice. That is advice to live by.
Yeah. And maybe even to die by.
But Andrea, we want to thank you so much. Sincerely thank you for all your help with us on this investigation, before, during, and after. Not just your help with us, but your help with the spirits, your family there at the farm, and communicating with them again before, during, and after. And it would not have been the same without you. And again, we are forever in debt to you for everything you've done. Now, I would like to ask, though, for those who are watching, who are interested in your book series, House of Darkness, House of Light, and your other books, where would be the best place for folks to find them?
Well, if they want them quickly and easily, they can get everything, the trilogy at Amazon. They usually ship within a day, or they can be downloaded with ease from Amazon. But if they would like a private inscribed copy from me, along with the little goodies that I send out in the boxes, and make, a more personal connection with me, the two best ways to do that are to reach out to me through my fan page on Facebook, which is the Buttercup Brigade, or just Buttercup Brigade. And if you can't reach me, then reach out to Lynn Bowling, who is the admin for that page, and she'll make sure that I get the message. Or you can write to me directly at my old stale website that is about to be new and refurbished and just so much better than it is, but you can still contact me directly through my website too. That's House of Darkness, houseoflight.com.
Andrea's vindication of the evidence we captured is the cherry on top of the whole trip to Rhode Island. Even if the evidence we captured was not the most profound proof ever captured in this infamously haunted farmhouse, we still believe that we came into contact with the energies left behind in this 300-year-old structure. Each piece of data captured and each location is one step closer to the answers we seek. So it's time to prepare ourselves, because the next location will take us to an entirely different type of haunting.